Good afternoon, welcome to Money Tips. Well, here in the UK, we've had a housing boom in the last year or so with average prices up more than 10%. There has been a bit of a slowdown since the stamp duty holiday ended, but prices are still very high compared to where they were a couple of years ago, and we're really at sort of record levels of prices of houses as we are with shares. Now, which is the city where you can least afford to buy a home? Which is the least affordable city in the UK to buy a home? And it's not London, because London is a big city. It's a greater London. It's a huge city. You could travel 10 miles from one end into central London and another 10 miles out the other side. So average prices in London are lower than in some places. Of course, in central London, Kensington, Mayfair, where you could pay 50 million or 100 million for a property, that's not included in this list. They're looking at Greater London. Now, according to Britain's biggest lender, the Halifax, biggest mortgage lender, Winchester is the least affordable city to buy a home in the country. Winchester is down there in Hampshire, near the south coast. Beautiful cathedral city. So it's a wonderful. It's always comes up on the list of the best places to live in the UK. It's a wonderful place. Good road links down there, trains and all the rest of it. But it suggests that the figure suggests that this commuter city will cost 14 times the average earnings. That's higher than in Greater London, where it's 11 times the average earnings. Central London, as I said, would be off the scale. And this is how the Halifax are based in the survey, because it's all very well just looking at property prices. Yes, a property in London might cost you more than it would in Winchester, but what is the affordability scale? How do you measure affordability? Now I remember when I was buying a property years and years ago, affordability was measured at something like, 3 times, 4 times, maybe 5 times the average salary. Now we're into like 14 times the average salary. And that to me is showing me that, prices are getting out of hand, because how can people afford 14 times the average earnings unless you've got some lump sum from maybe a previous sale or from parents, grandparents? Because you certainly couldn't get a mortgage based on, even 10 times your salary. You're probably lucky to get 4. So how do you buy a property when, with a deposit, it's still costing you 14 times your average earnings? So typically buying a property in the UK now sets back people on average 8.1 times their earnings, up from 5.6 times earnings just a decade ago. So 10 years ago, the average property, 5.6 times earnings. So 10 years ago, you're looking at, 2011, 12. I guess the prices had not quite recovered from the 2008 downturn, but then they've continued to rise in the last 10 years. So house prices have generally outstripped wage growth, said the managing director of the Halifax. And Winchester has actually leapfrogged Oxford as the least affordable city in the annual survey. Oxford, another beautiful city. Of course, you've got the universities there, and Oxford is a great place to live and much nearer to London. While Londonderry in Northern Ireland has come out as the most affordable city in the third year in a row. So the Northern Ireland city will only cost you 4.7 times earnings, which is still quite a lot considering how much you can get on a mortgage. But over the past year, Halifax says that average house prices have grown by 10.3%, and obviously the affordability level is what you should really look at, is whether people can actually buy these properties. But somehow people have been able to buy these properties. There's been a massive rush to beat the stamp duty holiday, and that people seem to have been able to find the money even when they've been gazumped and paying higher and higher prices. Analysis now by another body, which is the Office for National Statistics, the ONS, suggests that average earnings for people living and working in the cities climbed by just 2% in the same period. So, that means that property prices are running away with things. Okay, so average city prices increased to £287,000, while comparable average earnings rose to £35,677. And surprisingly now, cities are now more affordable than the average for the UK as a whole, according to the figures. And this obviously reflects the fact that people are moving out of the cities in search for more space during the pandemic. And a home in Winchester will now set buyers back an average of £630,000. That's up 8% in the last year. It was already quite an expensive city. It was never a cheap place to live, but £600,000 for an average property in Winchester, which is, I don't know, 80, 90 miles outside of London on the south coast. I mean, I wouldn't say it's an area where there's outstanding job prospects there. It would be a commuter place, but still, it's a desirable place to live. There's a lot of money in the UK. It's not all about first-time buyers and people struggling. There's generally a lot of money, and people can choose to live where they want. So in every part of the country, there are very expensive houses where people may go to retire. They may be independently wealthy. They may be financially free, or may be able to work from home. Now, in the previous years, the average house price in another city, which is in Hertfordshire, near London, very easy to get into London from St Albans, less than 30-40 minutes. That was 604,000, and average in the Greater London area is 564,000. So that's about right. But St Albans is a very expensive place to live for some reason. Another cathedral town, believe it or not. So St Albans Cathedral, Winchester Cathedral. Maybe these cathedral towns attracts a certain kind of people with money. But St Albans is a nice place as well. And of course, you can hop on a train and be in London in no time at all. The least expensive average house prices were in the city of Londonderry in Northern Ireland at £155,000, Hull £156,000. So there's still some bargains to be picked up in parts of the country. Average earnings in Winchester at £45,000, so it's higher than the average for the UK as a whole. But in St Albans, the average earnings are £59,000, nearly £60,000, higher than Greater London, where the average earnings are £51,000. And obviously in Greater London, not everybody is wealthy. There are a lot of people on the poverty line in some parts of Greater London, so that would bring down the average earnings. So where can you find a more affordable place to buy in the UK? If you're looking to buy a property, well, there is some good news. 1 in 9 of the cities in the UK has become more affordable in the past 12 months. Housing affordability improved in 7 cities compared with the earlier year earlier, and those are Oxford, Carlisle, Portsmouth, Durham, Salford, Inverness and Glasgow. So there you go. This wouldn't have changed very much, by the way, but they've slightly improved. And according to the figures, Carlisle and Aberdeen are now more affordable than actually than 5 years ago, while Inverness is the only city that's more affordable more than 10 years ago. The average home in there costs 5.6 times earnings, down from 6.2 times earning in 2011. So Inverness, for some reason, has kind of gone down in value in terms of affordability. So affordability obviously is significantly better in the north, and there are only 2 cities, Plymouth and Portsmouth, where the better than average affordability is with better than average affordability in the south. So if you're looking to buy in the south, Portsmouth and Plymouth are the places to look at. But generally in the north, it's always been that way. Prices are much cheaper, and you can still buy a big old lump of property in the north if you sell up in anywhere in the southeast and move north. But obviously a lot of people want to go to, there are perhaps more desirable cities in the southeast, and that's why people are flocking to these places. So the list here, in terms of, I'll just read out the whole list. You can see it on my blog. But Winchester in the southeast, 14 times earnings. Oxford, 12 times earnings. Truro, which is right down in the southwest in Cornwall, I think, 12.1 times earnings. You'll pay an average of £356,000 for a property in Truro. Oxford, by the way, is just under £500,000 for an average property in Oxford. It's a lovely place, Oxford. Bath, always been quite desirable. £350,000 you pay for an average property in Bath. Chichester, another lovely place on the south coast. You would pay nearly just under £450,000 for a property in Chichester. You need 12 times average earnings to buy down there. 10 times average earnings. And Cambridge, another popular university town, 10 times average earnings. You pay just under £450,000 for an average property in Chichester, and in Cambridge just under £500,000 for a property in Cambridge. So Cambridge is almost just a little bit more expensive than Oxford, but is lower on the affordability in terms of average earnings for that area. Of course, your earnings in London could be £60,000. So moving to somewhere like Winchester, Oxford, the average earnings in Winchester might be 14 times for the house price for that area, but somebody moving from outside of the area, from London, may have much higher than average earnings and could more easily afford to buy that property. Clearly, if you're selling a property in parts of London for £1 million, you can go down to Winchester and buy anything you like within reason. But for people living there, it must become more and more difficult that people are flocking out of the cities into these coastal towns and desirable areas, making pricing out the locals, if you like. Another popular place, Brighton and Hove, average now nearly £450,000 for a property, 11 times earnings. And then London and the South East, 8th on the list, 11 times average earnings, but you'll have to pay £564,000 for an average property. And certainly, if you look into London, in the outskirts, you could buy a house for £500,000, but as you go into London, you're looking at flats in most parts of say Zone 1 and 2 for that sort of price, for £400,000 or £500,000. You can get some ex-council properties a little bit cheaper, but there you go. Then 9th on the list, St Albans, £600,000 for a property in St Albans, 10 times average earnings. So you're paying more for St Albans than you would in parts of Greater London, even though it's further away from the city. Chelmsford, another popular place in Essex, but now up to £424,000 for an average property. Again, 10 times average income. Chelmsford used to be a very cheap place to move to. You could move out of London to Chelmsford, and you could buy properties very, very cheaply in that part of Essex. And if you move a little bit further out, you could find really big properties at low prices. But that's no longer the case. Chelmsford has fast train links, good road links now. It's got its own centre, if you like, its own jobs. So Chelmsford now has gone up in price. Salisbury, another beautiful sort of cathedral town, £424,000 for a property there. Sorry, nearly £400,000 for a property there. Exeter, down in Devon, 9.9 times average earnings for that area, over £300,000 for an average property. So again, Exeter, beautiful place, and for somebody moving out from London, £300,000 is not a lot of money, but maybe for the people living there, it's still 10 times average salary in that area. So people are being pushed out of the market. I mean, places like Hereford, nearly 10 times average earnings to buy in Hereford, 300,000. And I think this reflects the fact that people are moving there and pushing up prices. There's lots of places on the list. Norwich is quite an expensive area. Bristol, Southampton, Canterbury, another cathedral town, 9 times average earnings and £365,000. It will set you back to buy the average property there. Another nice place, Gloucester in the southwest, nearly £300,000 for a property in Gloucester, and Worcester in the Midlands, nearly 9 times average income to buy a property, £300,000. I mean, Worcester might be a place where people from, say, Birmingham might move to, and it's no longer a cheap option. And then you've got the least, the more affordable places. Those are the least affordable places. The more affordable places, I'll just read them out quickly: Londonderry, Carlisle, Bradford, Stirling in Scotland, Aberdeen in Scotland, Glasgow in Scotland, Perth in Scotland. I mean, Glasgow, you can pick up property, average property, £196,000. Hull in Yorkshire and the Humber, you can still pick up a property in Hull for £156,000. Dundee in Scotland, £180,000. Then you've got the North East, Sunderland, £179,000. So that's gone up a little bit, Sunderland. The North East is going through this levelling up process where the government is investing in the North East to to boost employment there. There's a lot of green energy projects going on up there. So Sunderland has often crept up. Then we've got another place in Northern Ireland, Lisbon. Salford in the northwest has become a bit more affordable. Then back to the northeast, Durham. Still, £200,000 to buy a property in Durham. Of course, it's a big university town there. Liverpool has come up. £200,000 average property. I mean, I remember when you could buy a property really, really cheaply in Liverpool. That's no longer the case. Average property there, £215,000. Then Belfast in Northern Ireland, £205,000. I remember years ago when I looked at some property in Belfast, and you could buy a property for about £30,000 a house. And a guy there told me, buy something, I'll manage it for you. But I just never had, I was so busy at that time, I never had time to go back there and even look at properties, let alone buy and get properties managed. Anyway, that's you can't change that. Lancaster in the northwest has become popular. It's a big university town, £200,000. Newcastle upon Tyne, £229,000 for an average property there. And Stoke-on-Trent has gone up a lot in the last few years. Average property now £200,000. Again, Stoke was one of those areas where you could buy houses for £60,000, £70,000. That's no longer the case. And then Edinburgh has become a little bit more affordable, but you'd still pay £285,000. I don't think that would be the centre, and it's 6.8 times your salary to buy in Edinburgh. So the report obviously shows further evidence of an exodus from London and the larger cities following the pandemic. People are now working from home, and so commuting is not the big issue it was when you have to travel hundreds of miles into the city, where you might now be able to work from home permanently, or just go into the city for just a short trip, or you only need to go into the city to you only need to go in the city to maybe work one day a week. So people can now move to places like Devon and Cornwall because they haven't got that problem of having to commute into work every day. So look, if you'd like to know more about property, you'd like to know more about investing in property in the UK, then have a look at the link below, because some friends of mine are running a webinar next week on the 18th, where they'll take you through various strategies you can use to buy property, to make money from property, even if you're not using your own money. Many strategies where there are no money down techniques to buy and control property. And there are lots of strategies. So they're going to go through a 2-hour webinar. It won't just be a sales pitch. It will be packed with a lot of good information. Sorry, my light's gone off at the moment. But it will be packed with good information that can help you get on to becoming a professional property investor. So have a look at the link there below. And I would definitely join that webinar. I'll be looking at it myself, because I always think you can learn something more and you can pick up new ideas if you just keep looking out, keep learning, never stop learning. So have a look at that property summit there, 2-hour webinar, absolutely free. You can watch it from anywhere in the world. So if you're living abroad and you fancy getting into the UK market, I think after this stamp duty frenzy, the stamp duty holiday frenzy to buy properties, where people were paying a kind of ridiculous money for properties in some cases, after that now I think the market is coming back to normal, and I'm certainly seeing price reductions in London. So I definitely think that maybe investors are going to start coming back into the market, and it could be a good time to look at things. So have a look at that, and click on the link below for that free webinar on how to get into property, even if you've got none of your own money. Thanks for listening, and have a great day. Bye for now.